Hello and welcome to a lesson on heat exchange in combustion appliances. Let's talk about what heat exchangers do and how they work. So here we've got a flame, we've got a gas flame, and we've got a metal enclosure where this gas flame is burning. That's kind of a common theme here. The metal enclosure, what the metal enclosure is doing is it's keeping the combustion gases contained. And it's leading the combustion gases to the flue, which goes out of the combustion appliance. And so that the products of combustion go out of the combustion appliance and up the chimney, and so that we're not exposed to them. We don't want to be exposed to these combustion gases because they're not healthy for us. That's one of the reasons. But the heat exchanger is doing is it's going to take a heating fluid like air or water, and the heating fluid is going to be on the other side of this heat exchanger from the flame. And the heating fluid is going to take the heat from the flame and from the combustion gases, and it's going to deliver it to the building. That's what a heat exchanger does. It keeps the products of combustion out of the building, and it delivers the heat from the flame to the building, and that's what we want. So we have a flame here. How is this working? Okay, the flame is very hot and it is radiating heat all around it, and the heat exchanger is absorbing the heat from the radiation from the flame. So the areas of the heat exchanger that are closest to the flame are heated by radiation, mainly heated by radiation. But as you get further away, you've got the combustion gases, and the combustion gases are quite hot, and they're moving against the walls of the heat exchanger. The heat exchanger is absorbing the heat from the gases. And then, of course, the heating fluid is traveling against the metal sides of this heat exchanger. So sometimes the flame is inside the box, and sometimes the heating fluid is inside the box. Most of the time, if you're heating with water, the water may be inside the box and the flame may be out here or down below the box. But suffice it to say that the heat exchanger forms a barrier between the products of combustion and the heating fluid. Now let's look at a collection of heat exchangers and talk about where the flame is and where the heating fluid is. And I think that'll give you an idea, so you'll be able to recognize some of these heating appliances. So this is the heat exchanger for a condensing furnace. The flame comes in here and goes around and then into this secondary heat exchanger where we have condensation occurring. And the reason why we want condensation to occur in a heat exchanger, and especially in a stainless steel heat exchanger, is because if we have the products of combustion, like the products of gas combustion, and we leave the water vapor in there that was formed by the combustion process, if we leave it in there, we're wasting like 12% of the heat at least. This heat exchanger is designed to condense the water vapor out of the flue gases. And so the return air goes right in through here, and the return air hasn't been heated yet. So this is the coolest return air that we're going to see. And it goes through this heat exchanger first, where it's preheated, and then through this other heat exchanger up here to get it up to a temperature of, say, I don't know, maybe 100 or 110 degrees. So this is the heat exchanger for a condensing furnace. Here's a very different heat exchanger. This is the heat exchanger for a water tube boiler. So the flames, the burner goes right in here. And the burner is heating this manifold, and these tubes are all absorbing the heat from the flame, and the water is inside the tubes. That's why they call it a water tube boiler. This is the heat exchanger for a water tube boiler. This is the heat exchanger for a cast iron boiler, a cast iron sectional boiler. And these cast iron sections are filled with water, but there's a hole through these sections. There's a section that is it's cordoned off right in here, and this is where the burner goes. And the burner burns in here. The products of combustion move up through the spaces between these sections, and they exit out here. What we're doing is heating boxes full of water, and this is how a cast iron sectional boiler works. And these are 1, 2, 3, 4 cast iron sections that are bolted together to form the heat exchanger for a cast iron sectional boiler. Okay, this is an old furnace heat exchanger right here, and the burners are atmospheric burners. And by atmospheric, I mean that they burn the fuel, and by virtue of the buoyancy of the flue gases simply rise through the heat exchanger and come out the other side with no aid from, say, a fan, okay? And this next heat exchanger is an advancement from that, and it should be tilted this way. And you have an in-shot burner like one of these shooting the flame into here. And the way it shoots flame into there is that there's a fan connected to here that pulls it in. And you see that, how these flames are pulled in. And this type of heat exchanger, this tubular heat exchanger, and this stamped heat exchanger both use these in-shot burners. And there's a little fan that is pulling the flame into the heat exchanger. And the reason why the fan has to pull the flame and the combustion gases into the heat exchanger is because the heat exchanger is a very tight place. Do you see how tight that these tubes are, and this channel is, this stamped channel is, compared to the large volume inside this atmospheric heat exchanger. This furnace was about a 70% AFUE, 80% AFUE. This is 90% AFUE. Okay, so there's some different heat exchangers, and I hope this lesson has helped you learn to recognize heat exchangers and to be able to explain what they do.